The Last Jedi is a film that has been talked about to death at this point. So many arguments have been made about the plot, the characters, and whether the film is true to the lore of the overall franchise. However, easily the most talked about aspect of the film is the characterization of Luke Skywalker. Many have argued that the Luke we see in this movie completely goes against the character we saw grow and develop in the entirety of the original trilogy. Others have argued that he is not assassinated at all and that he's completely consistent with those movies. Problem is, so many of the defenses I've seen just do not work whatsoever. So in this video, I'm going to break down Luke's entire character throughout the OT and explain why his character just doesn't work in TLJ, while also responding to defenses I find to be wrong. Now without further ado, let's begin. So first things first, I want to establish Luke's character throughout the OT. Luke as a character is a very kind and compassionate person by nature. An important aspect of his character is that he greatly cares for his loved ones, as shown when he immediately stops what he's doing whenever he feels they're in danger. A few examples of this is when he immediately goes to check on Owen and Beru when he suspects they've been found by the Empire. When he halts his Jedi training to go save Han and Leia when he has a Force vision of them in danger, and also when he tries numerous times to bring his father back to the light and ends up succeeding in the end. Another important aspect to his character are the multiple lessons he learns throughout the original trilogy, such as when he learns to not be so impulsive when lives are at stake, or when he overcomes the darkness within him at the end of Return of the Jedi. So since we have all that established, let's move on to TLJ itself. As soon as Rey finds Luke in exile, he acts completely different from how we're used to. So instead of accepting his father's lightsaber like we expect him to, he just simply throws it away behind him and walks away, isolating himself in his hut. He also refuses to help when Rey asks him, and even refuses when she tells him the message is from Leia, which is very weird considering the lengths he'd go to protect his family as shown in the prior films. He only starts to listen to her when Chewie breaks down his door and Rey explains the situation to him, to which Luke then responds by asking where Han is. Once he's fully briefed, Luke still refuses to help, which is equally strange considering all the things he's done for the rebellion to rid the galaxy of the Empire. In spite of his constant refusal, however, Rey continues to follow him around to try and get him to help the Resistance. And it's only when Rey stumbles upon the original Jedi text that Luke starts to question her. This causes him to conclude that Rey needs a teacher, however he refuses to do it himself. As soon as Rey asks why, Luke responds that he will never take on another Padawan again and that it's time for the Jedi to end, as he came to this island to die. This causes Rey to ask him for an explanation as to why he won't help, since she feels that he at least owes Leia that. He simply ignores her and walks off yet again. Now I think you might be wondering, why is Luke acting in this way? This is completely at odds with the way he acts in the original movies. There will surely be a good explanation for this, right? Well, I'm glad you asked. A while after Luke reluctantly agrees to train Rey due to rewatching the message Leia recorded for Obi-Wan, Luke tells Rey of how he tried to turn Ben back to light but Ben turned on him and destroyed the Jedi Temple. However, Kylo eventually contacts Rey via the dyad and gives her his side of the story where Luke willingly went into his tent to murder him while he was asleep. Luke stumbles across this and stops it immediately. After Luke demands that Rey leave the island, she angrily confronts him about what Kylo told her. Luke then reveals the truth of what happened that night. He sensed darkness within Ben's heart and went inside his tent to check on him. While using the Force, he had a vision that Ben would bring destruction to those he loved, and as a result, he got the idea to potentially end him right then and there to stop it from happening. Luke then ignites his lightsaber, but regrets the very idea of it almost immediately. This causes Ben to wake up and see Luke standing over him with his blade ignited. Ben interprets this as an attempt on his life and ignites his blade in defense, which causes his turn to the dark side. Okay, where do I even begin with this? Firstly, this entire premise relies on Luke being a colossal moron and actively ignoring the lesson he learned in Empire Strikes Back about patience. Why didn't he just wait until morning to talk to Ben instead of recklessly sneaking into his tent in the dead of night? That way, he'd actually have a chance to talk to Ben so he knows what he's going through, which would hopefully turn him back to the light. Secondly, the movie's excuse for Luke doing this being instinct doesn't work at all, considering this has never actually been established to be his base instinct with situations like this. I think we can actually assume the opposite given what Yoda taught him and the lengths he went through to save his father. And for those of you about to point out Luke nearly killing Vader for threatening Leia, that was only because Luke was highly emotional due to being toyed with by Sidious for what we can assume to be literal hours. He was quite literally not in his right mind. Luke even thinking of striking down Ben also spits in the face of his entire characterization in Return of the Jedi. Luke actively tried to turn his father, one of the most evil people in the galaxy, back to the light, so much so that he was willing to sacrifice his own life to the Emperor so Vader would turn. Instead, he tries to strike down his nephew in the dead of night even though he's done nothing wrong yet. Also, Force visions are only a look into a possible future. They aren't definite. Given all his experience at this point, Luke should know this. Fantastic character writing. But surely Luke would make good on this mistake, right? Surely after all of this, he'll try and stop Ben and bring him back to the light. Nope. Instead, he sends himself into exile after Ben destroys the Jedi Temple, which shows that part of the vision came true. Luke, you realize that just because part of the Force vision came true, that doesn't mean all of it will, right? By sending yourself into exile, you are essentially giving up on everything you fought for. This includes the entire galaxy and your family. By doing this, you are potentially causing the very thing you envisioned to come true. Ryan, what the fuck were you smoking when you wrote this utter horseshit? Since I finished explaining all that, I want to take this time to respond to some defenses of this absolutely piss characterization that I find to be, well, bad. Luke almost killed Vader during their duel when he threatened to kill Leia, so therefore it makes sense that he was thinking of striking Ben down in his sleep. These two situations are fundamentally not the same. Firstly, Vader is a fearsome Sith Lord who has killed millions if not billions of people. Ben, on the other hand, was a teenager who was having troubling thoughts. And all Luke had to back up that he would kill everyone he loved was a Force vision he knows isn't exact. Vader was also armed and dangerous when he threatened Leia's life. Ben was sleeping when Luke thought of striking him down. So again, these two situations are just not comparable. You were just mad that Luke is portrayed as a flawed character in this movie, not the perfect angel he was in the OT. If you seriously think Luke is a perfect character in those movies and didn't have flaws, you were not paying attention. Luke made a ton of mistakes, but he learned and grew from them. I have absolutely no problem with characters having flaws. It's partly what makes them interesting and engaging to follow. What I do have a problem with, on the other hand, is when said flaw contradicts the character's established personality and morals and actively undoes their character development. This is not merely a character flaw, this is a character assassination. Learn the difference. Yoda and Obi-Wan went into hiding in the original movies. Why is it okay for them to go into hiding but not Luke? Obi-Wan and Yoda went into hiding because they were being hunted by the Empire. As soon as they were called to help in some capacity, they did without hesitation. Luke, on the other hand, went into exile because he thought he fucked up and at first actively avoided trying to help.
With his father. He likely knows that Anakin going out of his way to try and save his wife is what ultimately killed her. Luke also knows that his reaction to the vision he had was ultimately what would make those visions become true. So Luke would try something that both he and his father never did. Nothing. Every time he or his father went out of their way to prevent a vision, they ended up causing it. Luke believes that if he were to go out of his way to prevent his visions, then he again, like his father, would ultimately end up causing it. So he does nothing. He believes that the only way to protect the ones he loves is if he does nothing. He believes that his presence and the Jedi's presence in the galaxy is what will cause all of those problems. And this is why he is so depressed in The Last Jedi.
Goldman, I don't know what you were smoking when you said this, but this defense just does not work on so many levels. If Luke does nothing, then Kylo has nothing stopping him from killing his entire family. What the fuck does Luke think would happen if he just sits back and lets Kylo run amok? He should actively be looking to stop him and turn him back to the light. Also, your entire defense of Luke having Force visions of the future that keep coming true isn't supported by the film in any way, since the vision Luke got in the hut was the first and only Force vision we see like this in the film. Though you saying this doesn't surprise me at all, given how you literally admitted to using your own fanfiction to support your defense in a video arguing why people saying Luke was assassinated in this movie are wrong.
And I understand that I had to fill the gaps in the story that were left by the writers.
Oh, Jesus. Great job, buddy. Luke changed his ways and went to go help the Resistance afterward. I cannot believe I have to actually say this, but that doesn't stop Luke from being assassinated. Congrats, he had a change of heart, but the writers still chose to contradict Luke's character. George wanted to do something similar to this in his draft of the sequel trilogy, so that makes it okay. Even if George did something like this in his draft, that doesn't change it from assassinating Luke's character. George isn't the messiah of Star Wars like a lot of people think he is. He made a ton of mistakes too, like the many baffling writing choices of the prequel trilogy. And that's all I have to say about that. I greatly appreciate all of you who watched this all the way through. I'm highly passionate about this subject and wanted to do a video on it since I hadn't seen any video that truly did it justice. This is my first real upload, so any criticism you have of my work would be greatly appreciated. As for my upload schedule, I don't know at this point. I'm very busy with my personal life at the moment, and this video alone took forever to make because of it. And with that, I'm never touching these shit movies again.